at the Abuja airport. This is very crucial. This is more like aquaplaning, because if there was water on the runway and then you didn't have a firm grip and then it skidded off. But it's crucial. If you recall, a couple of weeks ago, a Delta airline aircraft made an air return after takeoff from Murtala Mohammed Airport. It had a fire in one of its engines. And there's also been a report, well, about an hour or so after taking off from Abuja, a Lufthansa aircraft, flying to Frankfurt, 1 hour after from Abuja, had, they said, a sudden drop in altitude from about 35,000 to 5,000 or thereabout. Again, some people were saying it was probably clear air turbulence. But incidents of this nature may well be telltale signs of what perhaps the regulatory authorities are failing to do or are not doing sufficiently. Nigeria has not witnessed any major crash for nearly 6 years now. The last one, of course, involving Dana, if you recall, Bayo, in June 2000.
We are even lucky with the Delta, because the pilot quickly noticed one of the engines was on fire and he returned quickly to the airport, and all the passengers were evacuated, with the except of about 5 or 7 persons that suffered minor injuries. If anything adverse had happened, it would have been speculated that Nigeria, because of Boko Haram, it was insurgent. So there's need to increase safety measures and checks on aircrafts.
Okay, let's
go to just above the nameplate where we have that Dana plane story. Killings. As the kicker, Senate rejects call for state of emergency in Zamfara. More details to the Punch newspaper has that just above the nameplate. That's the story now. Killings. Senate rejects call for state of emergency in Zamfara. More details on page 20. We've imported $5.8 billion petrol since late 2017, says NNPC. Page 24, page 21 will offer you more details. Just beside the nameplate for the Punch, headsmen killings, refs begin probe, proposed loans for ranching. And still on the ranching issue, okay, that's for the Punch. The Guardian has this other stories. $1.3 billion facilities idle as delay stalls upstream sector projects. That's still on oil and gas. Stakeholders appeal to the federal government over looming 30,000 job losses. The story starts right there but continues on page 6.
I think you take those...
yes, the issue about farmer headers class, there's been some positive development. However, the Vice President has emphasized that government has already deployed mobile police and the Air Force and the Army to the areas concerned, particularly Benue, Taraba, and also Nasarawa State. The Vice President's spokesman says that forward operational bases have been established in Guma, Logo, and Kasinala, as well as Agatu area. A spokesman, Laulu Akare, says the same thing has been done in 2 local governments of Nasarawa, that is Awe and Tunga, while the same thing has been done for Takum. Meanwhile, the police say 17 persons have been arrested for alleged killing of some travelers at Boko. You recall that some travelers were killed in the vehicle in Boko. 11 persons have been arrested. Also, some policemen, so far since the crisis began, the police say they have lost about 11 of their colleagues, and some of the persons who were involved in this have been arrested. Meanwhile, in Taraba State, there's been a development. The committee set up by the National Economic Council met with Governor Darius Isiaku and all stakeholders, and they have reached some positive development there. Governor Darius Isiaku is prepared now to revisit the anti-grazing law for a period of over 2 months now. Some of the measures that are to be taken include ensuring that a grace period will be given for sensitization before the law is fully implemented. Secondly, facilities, including ranches, to be established in 3 of each of the senatorial zones, and the law will also, enlightenment on the law will also be carried out, and therefore headsmen are to be trained also how to learn to adapt to the ranching system. However, the chairman of the committee, Governor of Ebonyi State, emphasized that the doors of the governor is open for discussions, and the headmen
Bayo, very quickly before we take the editorial from the front page of Blueprint newspaper, you have at least 6 headlines, but I'll just take 3 of them. 37% privatized firms failing. That's according to the BPE. And it's unfortunate NLC is still divided at 40. And underage voters, review voters register, PDP tells INEC. Now, the editorial is on the imperative of state police, and it's coming from the Independent newspaper, and that's on page D6. Imperative of state police. It says that, the editorial now, it says what is needed to be done is to insulate state police from manipulations by the political actors. And this would, of course, come about by putting appropriate laws and regulations in place to enhance checks and balances.
Well, you see, the danger here is that if we go back to our history, there was a time we have what is called local police, and it was mostly abused by politicians, particularly in their immediate areas of operation. Well, that is the worry. The concern, however, is where should the constabulary responsibility of police reside? Is it with the police or with the executive? If you go around most British colonies, the authority of the police in the colonies is with the executive. But in the United Kingdom itself, the constabulary responsibility is independent of whoever is in power. And that is what we must emphasize.
That's our focus this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. And I guess already...
I'm sure you have the experts to dwell in that.
We'll definitely do that with them. Well, thank you very much for coming. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. Time now for a break. When we return, we'll kickstart our conversation, taking a look at the raging discussion on state police.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
I was distressed to notice that some of the comments, especially in the social media, have crossed our national red lines by daring to question our collective existence as a nation. This is a step too far.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Uncle, now see people boss with this, so.
Everybody, take comics for an call. Yes, now, just here, drink.
Comics, now easy to use solution for itchy cup. Comics, easy to use. Carry waka.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the daring and invincible Louis the Mosquito. Responsible for 200 malaria cases all on its own. Is there anything that can kill Louis? Presenting Mortise Our God. Its powerful formula kills malaria mosquitoes fast. So, get Mortise Our God.
Do you say what you know for sure to be true?
Do you know that Abuja is planning to arrest all these girls wearing weave-on and human hair?
Why spread falsehood, half-truths and lies just to make yourself relevant and to feel important?
Did you read last week's paper?
No.
You read?
No, I'm not reading for newspaper.
That is the problem. My people suffer for lack of knowledge.
People are misled by your fabricated stories and lies.
You've killed me, so now memorial service now go happen. Oh, God. Oh, God.
Unfortunately, these spinners of yarns and story people dwell among us and abuse us via our ears.
How does he get his information?
The cuckoo sends in the town where me and Noah are they get information.
Alas, tune into your rip-cracking comedy this week as we bring you the episode titled Story People.
Over and out.
Brought to you by Glow.
The largest data network, Glow Unlimited.
This is Nigeria, a nation fast developing its potentials. Nigeria is developing, and you have a part to play in nation building. Declare your assets and income today in the Voluntary Assets and Income Declaration Scheme, VADE, which is on till March 31, 2018.
When you honestly declare your assets and income and regularize your tax status through VADES, the government will have more resources to build a better Nigeria.
Declaration before December 31, 2017 attracts no interest, no penalties, no tax prosecution, and no tax audit. Visit www.vades.gov.ng or the nearest tax office for more information. This message is brought to you by the federal government, Federal Inland Revenue Service, and the State Boards of Internal Revenue. VADES, I declare, my duty, my nation.
What makes a Niger mom powerful?
I encourage my kids to learn new things. And if they get hurt, I rely on the power of my Dettol's One Capful to fight germs.
My family needs protection from germs. I use the power of Dettol's One Capful to disinfect surfaces and clothes.
I trust the power of Dettol's One Capful for bathing. The power of Dettol's One Capful protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Be a powerful Niger mom with Dettol. Be 100% sure.
Use Dettol Skin Jelly, which protects against germs for a healthy, smooth skin every day.
Welcome back. If you just joined us, the program is Good Morning Nigeria. Now, to set the stage for our discussion, let's take this background report put together by Victor Azu.
State Police is a subnational territorial police force with the primary goals of ensuring safety of motorists on interstate highways, enforcement of traffic laws on those interstate highways. They also enforce statewide law and investigate criminals. The United States, Canada, and some Asian countries have long embraced state policing as the more effective option. In Nigeria, the concept of state police was first recommended in 2009 during the Constitutional Law Review Report of the National Think Tank and later in the Vision 2020 report. Since then, it has been a major controversial and sensitive topic of debate whether Nigeria will indeed fare better with state policing. Those who argue in support blame the uneven distribution of security agencies to all parts of the country, resulting in some states being more prone to criminal and terrorist activities than the others. They also argue that most security personnel deployed to the states or areas have little or no knowledge of the local environment, and this leads to ineffective and inefficient policing in those areas, as most crimes are carried out untraced. Other reasons given include corruption in the Nigerian police. Those who campaign against state police talk about duplication of responsibilities of the Nigerian police. They have also quoted Section 214, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution, which says, "There shall be a police force for Nigeria, which shall be known as the Nigeria Police Force, and subject to the provisions of this section, no other police force shall be established for the Federation or any part thereof." However, the continued terror attacks in parts of the country, especially in the northeast, has made it more appealing to the hitherto indifferent.
To sit together and work out.
Just recently, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, while addressing a security summit, acknowledged that state policing is the way to go.
We cannot realistically police a country the size of Nigeria centrally from Abuja. State police and other community policing methods are clearly the way to go.
This was followed by an endorsement by the Governors Forum.
There's a need for the state police, and we can say it's only the answer.
For ordinary Nigerians, the question is, will the adoption of state policing put an end to the tide of killings and other forms of crime and criminality across the country?
We are being joined now by a number of guests to discuss this issue in greater detail. First, at this time, we'd like to welcome Sir Mike Okiro, who is a former Inspector General of Police and current Chairman of the Police Service Commission. Sir Mike, a pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And also here with us in the studios is Dr. Chris Akomas. It's a former Deputy Governor of Abia State. Your Excellency Akomas, pleasure that you are back on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me.
And lastly, with us here in the Abuja studios is Olu Ogunshakin. He's a professor of police studies. Professor Ogunshakin, we're delighted that you are back on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
Joining us from our Lagos studio, we'd like to welcome retired Assistant Inspector General of Police Bala Hassan, also a former officer in charge of Zone 2, that's back in Lagos. Good morning to you, sir.
Nigeria.
Seated in Lagos is Dr. Ona Ekomo, another regular face on the program, is the President, Association of Industrial Security and Safety Operators of Nigeria. Dr. Ona Ekomo, welcome to the program. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Ms.
We have another guest joining us from Canada via Skype. I would like to welcome Sergeant Basi Osage. He's a detective with the Toronto Police. Mr. Osage, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. I'm not sure if I can hear you very well, but...
Well, at least for you to respond, I meant...
yeah, that's right. Sergeant Detective Osage, of course, is joining us again. We had him some months earlier. That was in 2017, of course, when we were discussing matters relating to policing. Gentlemen, let's begin this conversation by kicking off from the soundbite from the vice president. The vice president, of course, was speaking at the security summit organized by the Senate, where he indicated that Nigeria can no longer be effectively policed centrally from Abuja. And therefore, state governors on their own have also endorsed the advent of a decentralized policing system, whether state police or community policing. But what are your thoughts, gentlemen? Let's begin first with the former Inspector General of Police.
The Vice President actually hit the nail on the head. The essence of policing is to provide security for life and property. A situation where there is insecurity in the land and the people start with responsibility and not calling the shots as should be called. So the statement by the Vice President is germane in that right now Nigeria is in a precipice of insecurity. So if the Vice President feels that state police is the answer and is open to debate, let's talk about it to see whether Nigerians actually want state police, whether Nigerians are ripe for it. You can want something but may not be ready for it. State police may be the answer, but is it possible in Nigeria? That's the question.
All right, so we'll come back to you. Dr. Akomas, your thoughts?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I want to commend His Excellency the Vice President for coming out boldly to, give a kind of direction by stating the fact that there is need for state policing. The point is, given the situation of the country now, and also looking at our experiences over the years, it is clear that it is time for us to not only consider, but get into the nitty-gritty of making effective the implementation of establishing a state police system. All over the world, community policing is the key now, it's effective. And for us here in Nigeria, we need to police ourselves within the communities, within our immediate environment. Yeah, we will get into the aspects of how this will be done, the recruitment process. Would it be based on indigenship or residency and all that? How would the payments, the ammunition, arming of the people, the jurisdiction areas and all that? People express fears that governors would use state police, if established, against opponents and all that. But governors, though not directly in charge now, they are still the chief security officers of their states, and they are able to get a lot of things done using the security apparatus. So if we have, over the years, been able to manage ourselves, we have to start here, because a journey of a million miles starts with a step, begins with a step, and we have to take that step now to secure our country, to secure our environment.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Akomos. Let's bring in Professor of Police Studies. This is quite an emotive position for most people, whether for or against. What are your thoughts?
Good morning. I'm quite happy to be here, first and foremost, and before that, this is quite a sensitive issue. But one of the biggest mistakes we make is we tend to confuse community policing and state policing. They are totally different entities. And then you need to ask yourself, what is state policing? And you've shown in your cameras about what happened in the other climates. But the idea is, even when you get to the state policing, there are still different communities within that state. The essence of community policing looks at partnerships, look at problem solving, look at transformation. But the idea for us here is Nigeria ready for state policing? My answer would be, no, we are not ready. And the reason I said this is because we are not disciplined enough. And then when you look at the entities that comes around accountability, there are a lot of issues wrong with our accountability system. For instance, and this is not a time to blame governors or to blame anyone, but the reality for us is when you look at accountability mechanism, what we have in place right now is not working. You talk about INEC state chairmen and chairwomen. And you look at how effective they are, because I think this is an opportunity for us to actually look into the structures. Then if those structures are working, in some states, the state governors actually are the ones that sponsors the assembly members. And then you look at who are the state police officers going to be accountable to. And then you look at the different oversight. You have the police commission in the federal level. Are you going to now duplicate that? And these are the issues that you are not even talking about funding, which is lacking for now. Because when you look at the whole issue, most people, especially in Nigeria, as of today, they've not received their salary. And
I'm sorry, Professor Ogunshakin, before we get into the details, I'm sure Sir Michael Kiro, had hinted that they needed to resolve the question of whether we, as we want state police, are we ready for it? You talked about a conceptual difference between state police and community police. Could you clarify that for our audience?
Yes, community policing, actually, there are four strands to it. Originally, when the Vice President mooted the idea last year, we look at it in sense of having a partnership with the communities. Then the second one is being able to problem solving. The third one is organizational transformation. The transformation itself is to transform the organization that is doing the policing. The fourth one we just added is communication. There is a need to be able to communicate with your audience. So we need to separate community policing from state policing. State policing is when the state have total control over the police. And when we say total control, they will not be able to depend on any other states. They will even institute laws that governs their own police. And then there will be issue of jurisdiction. At what point, and this is one of those critical issues, at what point does a state police operating in Kogi State run into the state affairs of Ekiti State? For instance, if you are chasing a suspect, how do you connect that together? Who pays when a police officer chasing a suspect from Ekiti State runs into Kogi State? There's got to be a lot of work to be done. And as much as I'm not sitting here saying I'm for against, I think it's time for us to have a national debate before somebody actually pronounces that we're going to have a state police.
Well, that's the debate we're having.
It has started, even over
right,
time. Right. That's the raging debate. Thank you very much, Professor Ogunshakin. Let's get over to Lagos quickly, where we have the guest seated. We have retired AIG Bala Hassan. What are your thoughts? You've listened to the guests on this side of the divide. State police, how ready are we?
Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria talk about decentralization, that the problem of Nigerian police, because the power is centralized to the center, that's why we are not able to maintain law and order. So that does not necessarily flow from that argument that we may require a state police at this very moment. So, but however, after this program, because the issue of state police has its own undertones, overtones, and consequences. But by the time we look at the whole gamut of argument over it, we'll be able to know whether this thing is really possible or whether there's an alternative to it Because by the time we discuss, we'll be able to know that the police at the center, is it properly funded? Why is there centralization of power? Is there any alternative we can get around this problem without creating state police with its own inherent problems? So by the time we discuss, we'll be able to get out of the woods.
So, no, yes, we remember part of the issue of security brought you on, I think, the last time you were with us on the program. Now, the unitary system of policing, that is the present security architecture we have, is it really the issue here, or what other forms of policing have we not adopted or have we not looked into that is causing us this argument and debates all over?
Thank you very much. I think the unitary policing has its problems because it's a federal police structure. But I think the reason, and I think it's best for Nigeria, by the way, the problem we have is issues of accountability, measurement of performance, funding, executive managerial control, and strategic planning. Those are the kinds of issues that are bedeviling the NPF, that's the Nigeria Police Force, as presently operated. Because now when you want to cross over to the issue of state policing, community policing, and yes, Professor Gunshaki is spot on when he says there are different concepts. Of course, there are different concepts, and they have different consequences. We are not America. We are not Canada. Actually, the state police agencies grew up first, and then the federal force came on. FBI came on only in 1921 here. Meanwhile, in fact, not even the state, the cities, the corporations had their police agencies first before borrowing from the Pillian model of 1829. The cities had their police agencies first before the state police agencies were built, starting from New York, and then before the FBI came on board. So, I mean, when we turn history upside down because we don't understand how these other countries developed, I mean, we are doing Nigeria a very big disservice.
Dr. Noah Homo, thank you very much for that background on the evolution of the policing structure in the U.S. We'll come back to you, gentlemen, in the Lagos studios, but let's go over now to our guest via Skype, Sergeant Detective Osagie, who is in Toronto. Detective Osagie, give us a sense of the structure and the governance mechanism of policing in your jurisdiction. I know you are in Ontario, which is a huge province in Canada, and then tell us what the relationship is amongst the various policing entities.
Good morning, and I think I don't know if you can hear me, but I think we have to understand how the system works here in Canada. In Canada, we have what we have in the federal police. They have what we call the ROCMP, that's the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. So they are the federal police, like the FBI. They are responsible for the entire country. But at the same time, they are also responsible for areas which do not have state police. Then you move away from the RCMP, then you now go to the state police, which we call the provincial police. So the provincial police are also responsible for the specific state and for also areas that do not, cities that cannot have their own police service. Then you move down to the cities, like Toronto, where I have been a police officer for 20 years, and we are city police, and we police Toronto. The most important thing I believe in Nigeria, why thinking about state police, is that we have to understand why is the federal police not working, and they have to also understand it is complicated in a system like Nigeria to have a state police and a federal police when the federal police is not working right now. So the issue, I believe, on solving crime in Nigeria is not just about having a state police, and some people are saying you need a community police that is closer to the people. But the federal police, the Nigerian police force, can be closer to the people because you have a police station all over the country. But the issue about in Nigeria, why the police are not able to do their job, has to do with the hiring process. What kind of people are they hiring? How are they trained? How are they paid? Even the commissioners in the states can do the job if they are given discretionary power. So I agree with some of the guests that we need a working federal police first before we can then decentralize to have a state police. So you also need a judicial system and to make everything possible. And then you also have to deal with the issue of what about if a governor go rogue on the state and start to use the police for their own personal interest? Who is there to control them? So to control the state police from the abuse of the governor, you're going to have to need a good judicial system for the people to go complain when the state police go rogue. You also need a good federal police so that they can control the state police when they do something wrong. So I think the interrelationship between the federal police, the state police, and then the city police have to be studied properly. So I agree with all the guests. You can't just look at the United States or look at Canada to say, yes, we are ready for state police. I don't think Nigeria is a good idea to have a state police. I don't think Nigeria is ready based on the current infrastructure, based on the current training, based on the salary they pay their officers. They are not ready for that. The issue with Nigeria, like I'll just take a little further, like the Fulani herdsmen. I believe that is one of the reasons why people are clamoring for state police. Fulani herdsmen, I'm sure Michael Kiro is there. Fulani herdsmen issues is need a political solution, not a police solution. So Nigeria cannot police their way out of that situation. They have to be a political will to deal with it, and then you have to train the police to do it. So moving forward, we have to check out the existing structure and then see if Nigeria is ready. It's a good idea, but I don't think they are ready for state police.
All right, thank you very much, Sergeant Detective Osagie, joining us via Skype. We'll pause you in the meantime and then return to the other guests to have their thoughts. Sir Michael Kiro, incumbent chair of the Police Service Commission. In your opening salvo, you said, yes, we may want something, but are we ready for it? So we'd like you to expatiate on that. And in doing that, bear in mind what we have seen with the reorganization of the Nigeria Police Force over the years. We never used to have zones, but you have the Nigeria Police Force decentralized into a number of zones, and in spite of the decentralization, the threats to public peace and security, those threats have not abated. So what are your further elaborations on this issue?
Yeah, thank you very much. Like Senator Saya said, trying to recall what I said earlier on, the concept of state policing is so that the aim is to ensure there's effective policing in the states, whereby the challenges of insecurity are handled. Right here in Nigeria, you have the federal police, you have the state police, you have the state or commissioners of police, you have police officers posted in states. This that the difference will be that somebody from Sokoto, who's a police officer, can post it to River State, can post it to Abia, can post it to Enugu. Whereas if you say police, all of them remain within the state. All the indigenes or whoever that are in that state are in that state police. In Nigeria, not the same thing. But we can address that also. Coming to funding, the problem also people are talking about is the funding of the police. The state governors are now doing the whole job. The state governors, they buy arms for the police, they supply vehicles, they give the uniform, they provide the accommodation, barracks, and so on and so forth. This is the responsibility of the federal government, but the federal government is not funding the police well enough. That's why the state governors are taking up, because the state governors, as it were, are chief security officers of their states. And if a state is not secure, no investor will invest a situation where there's no security. That's why most state governors are going out of their way to take their own state budget to keep the police in their states. Dr. Sajay will agree with me that I've advocated for what I call Canadian model, whereby the FBI in Canada that posted to everywhere. It is the state governor, that is the regional or provinces, Ontario, Canada, Quebec, that equip the police. Whatever they have for police, the regions or provinces remain there. The police have been posted out. But the federal government pays the police there. But the provinces equip the police. And I think that should be done. If I did it in Nigeria without knowing that what I did, because most governors are people that equip the police. We should structure it in such a way that the governors constitutionally should equip the police. Talking about restructuring the police, I would have advocated a situation where you have to call zonal DIGs. You have to see the political zones. DIGs should be posted to those zones. The men within the policemen can be posted within the zone, from one state to the other within the zone. And then the budget of the police should be into 7. The 6 part should be for the 6 geographical zones. The 7 part should be handled by the IG for the first headquarters and first headquarters divisions and agencies. And so that the police officers in the zones headed by DIGs can handle those areas very, very well. This will gradually eliminate the clamor for state police. Because, like Osage has said, we have state police, it is open to abuse by governors. The governors say, we pay the piper, we dictate the tune. And it's not be good for Nigeria as a multi-ethnic religious society.
All right, Dr. Akoma, let's have your thoughts.
Thank
you. You were deputy governor, so.
Yes, and I'm happy that we have started with this debate. I want us to really take our minds back to what it used to be. Did we have an arrangement within our localities in the past? Yes. What was the system of governance then? Parliamentary. What do we have now? Democratic system. Was this indigenous? No. Did we borrow it? Yes. So why would you borrow a part of a system and forget the other part that you need to run the system effectively? How have we operated in the states? I can talk of Abia and the states around, even Lagos. At a time when criminality was shooting over the roof, Bakassi was formed. It was not even formed by the state government. It was the people within the market. The shoemaker said, look, people come here to buy things and they're robbed. We must protect our customers. They got together and started fishing out the criminals because they know them. And then things changed. Of course, with time, because of the way things were handled, abuse came into it. And that is what I'm talking about. I'm happy Prof. and even Dr. Na talked about the recruitment process. And when I started, I said, how are we going to do that? What would the payment structure, the ammunition and these things, and jurisdictional issues. These are things we can solve. And I'm happy the former DIG, former IG, has come to the, all we need, we have the federal arrangement. We have divisional police stations in our various local government areas. In some local government areas, you have as many as 2-3 divisions. And how do they run? Who pays for their vehicles? Who buys the fuel for them? That was why I said when we talk about governance and other, let us not forget that even as we talk about the laws that will propel this, we have issues in this country, we've had issues where state assemblies try to go overboard or try to mess up the systems. And the National Assembly will take over the responsibilities of those state assemblies to bring things, to ensure sanity. We will have the federal system, whittle down certain things, like he said, give authorities to people that should be, and monitor. We must have a way of controlling things. Like I said, presently, don't governors use the police to intimidate opponents? Recently, somebody tried to visit his state, and he couldn't. Did the governor come to stop him on the street? The security were used. I have been a victim of all that. But I'm saying, when you have a policing system that incorporates the people, that ensures that, because that's one of the things that we suffer has to do with the movement of the police. Some of them come in and feel, okay, even if I cause trouble here, the much that will happen is I'll be posted away from here to somewhere. If we have a system like that, like he's saying, if somebody knows I am part of this place, I am not going to anywhere else, this is where I've been posted, whether you are from Sokoto or from Abia or from Lagos, you are working in Lagos and you remain in Lagos, you know that's where you will remain. You be careful what you do. And we are talking as if the policemen are not Nigerian. Those security people are also Nigerians. They want something good. So let us look at how to improve the system and make it work for us. You can borrow something, but you don't have to borrow it in total. It doesn't have to be 100%.
All right, thank you very much,
and that
Dr.
is what I'm saying, that we need that system to
All right,
work.
Dr. Akobas, let's bring in Professor Ogunshaki once again. Well, for different studies that you might have gone into to look at what is workable over time, every one of you have talked about the different concepts, what's in the name, what's in the definition of phrases, or the concept to whether community policing, state policing, and all what you have now. What are those telltale signs, really, that this is what we want or should need at this point of our policing for every part of the country? Because every area definitely has its own special need.
Thank you for that. One of the issues for me, which is quite critical, is the fact that the structures that we put in place, if only we follow 10% of that structure, we'll be okay. For instance, we have a police council. And I think the question at this point is, when was the last time that the police council met? Who are the members of the police council? And these are people who are the governors from the state. Sir Michael Kiro is one of them. It's one of the, Police Service Commission chairman. And then the president shares it. But the reality is that in itself, we cannot even answer the last time we met. And this is a structure that is created to actually assist the federal system of policing. That is being set aside. It's not working. And then it's almost, for me, it's almost like you have a 10-bedroom house and the wind damaged your roof. And you decided to build 10 different bedrooms in different locations. And as much as I will not call it madness, but that's what it looks like. You need to fix what you have. The substance is the issue here. It's not geographical relocation. We need to work with what we got. And the system of going abroad, I was the senior advisor to the City of London Police for 10 years. And the issue we face is not something that is national, it's local. You need to have a national police plan. You need to have a state police plan. You need to have a local police plan. Those three tiers are missing. What we need to be looking at for the state, police council, is for them to call for national police orientation once a year, where you have a national policing plan, which will be devised by the state. Then the state will now bring their own policing plan. Then they will go to the local level that bring their own policing plan, because we know we have different policing requirements and different policing agenda, different policing challenges. The people in Delta State will have their own different policing challenges compared to the people in Sokoto or in Borno. I was in Maiduguri 2 weeks ago. I was in the IDP camp. I was at Bakassi. I was at Delori. The issues they face is totally different from what we face in Abuja. And for you to now say you're going to bring officers who are indigents of Borno State to go and police Borno, where they know where they live, they know their family, they know everybody. The issue at that stage is you're actually punishing those people. And the reason we set up the federal policing in the first instance is still the same, to be able to take away the repression that we suffer under the First Republic, of the native police. And I think a lot of people in this room will realize that when we have the first native police, the first group of people that were brought in from Sierra Leone, if we go a bit back into the history, they are the people we call the armed Hausa police officers who policed Lagos through the colonial era. Then we moved to Niger people, then we moved to Lokoja, even Lokoja. So we've gone through this local policing. The reason it did not work is the level of repression that was bestowed on the citizens. And again, when we then look at blaming the governors, and I'm not trying to defend the governors here. Not all governors are bad, and not governors are good. But the reality is we need to start pointing the fingers at the citizens who empower the governors to treat them the way they treat them.
All right, Professor Ogunshakin, thank you very much. You were also, like the other guests, raised a number of points, but we'll give the others the opportunity to also speak to this issue before we come back to you to clarify some issues. Let's go back to retired AIG Bala Hassan. Retired AIG, you earlier started by talking about what we needed to do. You've listened to the other guests now. What's your further contribution?
My former boss and still my boss, the retired IG, mentioned issue of this decentralization of the Nigerian police force to the various geopolitical zones. When I was in the force, that idea was mooted out, but it never came into fruition because maybe by next year, probably when the present IG may be having his exit, you will see people struggling to be IG because it's a post people look at as winner takes all. So, because everything is centralized to the IG. If you want to do anything in the zone or in the command, unless IG sends somebody to come and do it for you. So that is the idea why the Police Service Commission, under the distinguished chairman of Mr. Okiro, brought this concept of let the DIGs man the geographical zone. Let them give them power so that they will be able to get their own finances, then execute their own projects. But a situation whereby everything is centralized is some of the problems. Even at that, you discover that the IG is not even given the necessary funding to run the police. It's on record that as of 2017, the IG requested for 26.9 billion naira just to fuel 14,000 vehicles. Just to fuel 14,000 vehicles. And the budget he asked for then was 1 billion naira. What he got was 36 billion, which is just 3.6%. It's like you have a daughter going to university, she made a budget of 1,000 naira, you're giving her 3 naira, 60 kobo to go and survive in the university. No, that doesn't happen. So that's why even at the center, it's poorly funded. So the concept the retired IG brought that the DIGs should be sent to political zone. Once there is no money at the center, they will not get the money at the various zones to carry out their own project. But however, if there's proper funding and these DIGs in the various geopolitical zones have all their budgets sent to them, and the same way they too, they will empower their various AIGs and various state commissioners, then you see things flowing. Because when we were commissioners of police in those days, they used to send money to us to share to the DPOs. Even at that, you see that a DPO is sending 60,000 naira in a quarter. 60,000 naira cannot fuel a patrol vehicle, cannot repair it for 3 months. And I'm sure maybe for now, that such monies are not coming. So you can see poor funding, that's why police become vulnerable. For a patrol commander to properly, effectively perform his duties now, maybe he has to visit a filling station, greet the owner of the filling station, they fold the car for him, pro bono publico. It's what he used to do his own patrol. So that is really, really causing to people to think that the federal system of policing has failed. It has not failed. If there is necessary financing and decentralization of power, and the real men on the ground that patrol the beach feel sense of belonging, I'm sure this country is not so big for the Nigerian police to police. Give them what they deserve. Let this money reach where it's supposed to reach. When this is done, but after all, this same Nigerian police going to other countries and they say they are the best. Why can't they perform in their own country? We have one of the best officers in the Nigerian police force, and I believe with necessary assistance from the federal legislature, they will be able to perform their duties very, very well.
Listen, well, the retired AIG Bala Hassan has raised a number of points. Okay. He's talked about an all-powerful office that's occupied by the Inspector General, and therefore you have a scramble, to succeed whenever there's one who is exited. But he also talked about poor funding, talking only about funding at the federal level. The retired IG Mike Samako Kiro has indicated, and we do know, that the state governments themselves have been supplementing the funding of the police force. There's no aggregate figure for the supplementation, but yet we are having the inefficiencies in policing around the country. We would like Dr. Anna Okromo. Dr. Anna Okromo, in terms of discussing all of this, we do know, of course, that there is decentralization in policing in a number of federal jurisdictions, in the US, in Canada, in Australia, for instance. And some proponents of decentralization in Nigeria are saying, just like Dr. Akoma is here with us, that the issue perhaps we should be looking at will be one of jurisdiction. So how do you avoid jurisdictional conflict, or how do you enhance jurisdictional cooperation? Because if, as Professor Gunshakin says, like, the current structure is not working effectively, and everybody agrees that it's not working, why persist with that structure? So I would like you to refer to dwell, for instance, on maintaining appropriate jurisdiction and what we need to do in streamlining the operations of a decentralized police force, if that is the way to go.
Well, I guess for me, this would just be an academic debate, because I have said I am not in support of state policing, because, or state police. Of course, I love state policing. I mean, we have to police all the states. I think we also must make a distinction between the concepts policing agencies and the policing service. Now, we desire good policing service throughout Nigeria, whether be it at the federal level, at the states, or at the local levels. Now, jurisdictionally, you have services that overlap. Things like, let's go to police strategy, for example. Now, what are the strategies that the police agency wants to adopt? It wants to do random and directed patrols. It wants to do call for service, that is, respond to emergencies. It wants to do detection of crimes post-event. It wants to do crime prevention to the extent that it's able to. And then also it wants to do fear reduction. That means things that will create fear among the population. You want to reduce them. If there's an accident, cover up the bodies and so on. And then wants to do other maintenance. Small child wants to cross the road in the morning going to school. You want to help cross. You want people to follow the correct way so that they don't break the laws and all that, and create what we tend to have in Nigeria, like an appearance of chaos in Nigeria. But having said that, those are policing services. Now, the problem we have, Honorable Kingsley, is police agencies. Now, what the Vice President said is that let me quote him. He said, Nigeria can no longer effectively be policed from Abuja. Now, the question then is, why can't we effectively police it from Abuja? My contention is that it's not a jurisdictional problem. It's not because we don't know where the state powers rest. For example, we have in Nigeria, detectives can pursue criminals across all 36 states of the country and Abuja. In Nigeria, police divisions or police commands can operate within their state, but they can provide escort across state lines. In Nigeria also, but of course, if they are going across state lines, then they must have a warrant to do that, such that if they are stopped by police agencies that is police personnel in other states, they can justify that they are not on illegal movement. So these are jurisdictional issues. Now, within the state commands, the divisions and the area commands, they operate freely and what have you. Now, you have the zonal detectives, that is the zones, like the one that Oga Hassan here used to command. The zonal detectives operate within their tri-state or bi-state areas. So having said that, we know how that works, but now state policing, let's take Mr. Osagi in Canada. RCMP runs a federal structure there, like the FBI in the United States. Now you have the provincial police agencies. They operate only within their states, but if there is fresh pursuit, that means if a criminal is crossing from one province into the next province, first of all, convention has given room for fresh pursuit without breaching, let's say, Ontario getting mad that Quebec or whatever is they are entering their province. Now, and then, of course, you now have to say, if you make an arrest there, you must take that suspect to the police formation there and let them process the person before you can extradite them back to your zone. So here in Nigeria, my problem is abuse, abuse, abuse. That is it, by the political elite. And until we're able to hold those political elites responsible, why is it that when you have elections organized by the state electoral commissions, nobody can win from any other party? Or why is it that even when you have alternate, factions of parties, you can demolish their houses? Until we answer those questions, state police is a no, no, no for this country.
Dr. Anakomo, these were the issues. I mean, blessing. Yesterday we discussed, the state of the state independent electoral commissions. But still, we'll take the views from Detective Osage before we take reactions from our viewers. Detective Osage, tell us something about jurisdictional influence of the various tiers of police in Canada. For instance, what is the extent to which you can function in Toronto? What is the extent of the Ontario police? What is the relationship, and how is friction managed, if any?
Okay, the way it works is this. If this RCMP, which is the federal police, they have a suspect or they have an investigation and they come to the conclusion that they need to arrest somebody in Toronto, what they will do, they will notify the division where the person resides. And so once they notify the division, they don't necessarily have to be a joint investigation. So they will notify the division, and then once they attend before they arrive at the place, then they will arrive with the police service in charge of that jurisdiction, and they will the people in charge of the city police or the state police are only there to support the federal police. So once the investigation is carried out and the person has been arrested, they will most likely be taken to the local divisions. But what the other speaker, Hassan, said is that it doesn't mean that it has to be processed by the local divisions. The federal police will process it, will do everything, and then the local division will have to take that person to court. So in the issue of fresh pursuit, if there's a pursuit from another province, another state, to a place like Toronto, the way we have it is that the state or the city that started the first pursuit, we have the carriage of that pursuit, and they will be responsible for the pursuit until the end of it, and they will be responsible for the paperwork. So what the other police need is to support, not to take over. So that is the issue with Nigeria, is that they have to change the law, and they have to be specifics on this jurisdiction, who is in charge, who is not in charge. I believe that they have to fix the federal police, the Nigerian police force, to be more effective and efficient in doing their job. Then they can decentralize. So the issue of jurisdiction will not be an issue, because whoever start the investigation will finish the investigation. But the other police force, the state or the municipal police, will support whoever started the investigation. I'll give you a very quick example. Last week, the RCMP, they wanted to attend Toronto in a division where I was in charge. The RCMP, I was contacted by the RCMP. I briefed them, and I was responsible, obviously, for the process. But I later advised them that it might not be a good time for them to come. Then we have to reschedule. So it's just a matter of working together. But the RCMP with the federal police cannot come to a city to do any policing without notifying the police agency that are responsible for that area. So then the police service that is responsible for that area provide the support.
Detective Osage, just one last question to clear with you before we take the tweets. I asked that earlier to say, do you have issues of conflict of jurisdiction, and how is this resolved? Conflict, for instance, let me reduce it to the Nigerian example. Would you have instances of muscle flexing? You say this is federal might that has come into your province.
we don't have that because the process is very clear. You have a federal say if someone is being investigated for drug offenses, and the federal police have started the investigation. So there'll be no flexing. All they need from the state police or from the municipal police when they arrive, it would be the question I'll be asking is, what do you need from us? And then we provide them what they need. Whoever started the investigation, even if the local police started an investigation and it's a federal crime, the Constitution clearly states what's a federal crime and what is just a regular crime. So it's clear that usually there's no flexing on muscle. But I can see that in Nigeria, maybe if the structure, they need to practice it for a long time. But here, we don't have that because the federal crime is so separate. Like I said, whoever started the investigation, finish the investigation. Out of courtesy by other officers, it's your responsibility to support another officer, whether it's federal or state. So whoever started the investigation, take courage of it, and the other officers have to support.
Thank you very much, Detective Basi Osage. We'll get back to you in the course of the discussion. Like Kingsley indicated earlier, we already have the reactions from our viewers. We'll run through them, and then we'll get on with the discussion. Okay, from Dele Jack Solomon is this tweet. A centralized police system will not solve the nation's security challenges currently being witnessed. The security and well-being of our good people can't be compromised. Moreover, there is a need for reorientation, reorganization, and repositioning of the Nigerian police force to enable it meet the requirements of public order, public safety, and democratic governance. The state and community policing is the way to go to put in check security challenges in Nigeria.
We have this from Sunny Anka. It says that state police would rather deteriorate the security situation in the country. Cruel as they, that the state governors are, with their mischievous predispositions, state policing would only empower the achievement of their selfish interests. Expect the mishandling of civil servants in the states.
Victor Oyesoma tweets, the present policing architecture is not working in the federal system. State police is imperative for enhanced security of citizens. The National Assembly should create the legal framework to check likely abuses by governors.
And Francis Obi tweets, state police is good, but there should be very clear guidelines and penalties on abuse or misuse by state governors.
Abdul Musa tweets, going by the security challenges in many parts of the country and the inability of the Nigerian police to provide the needed protection, I may be tempted to support the creation of state police. But for the indiscretion exhibited by our political leaders, I have my reservations.
Emmanuel George tweets, state police is a good development. Having statewide authority to conduct law enforcement and criminal investigations. But the National Assembly must thoroughly and critically examine if Nigeria is ripe to establish state police. We should not forget our political structures. They must be independent.
And now this tweet is from Habila Zakshi. State policing is a very good system of policing, but the only constraint to state policing is the sources of funding and the excessive executive control for political gains at the expense of its core mandate. There should be state policing with a control mechanism from the center.
And we have this one again from Sunny Anka. Security matters shouldn't be taken with levity. I doubt if there is any state that can cater for the police, as does the federal government. What should we expect then? Should the police be starved by these governors as they do the civil servants?
Festus Akimboyewa is of the opinion that the state police that is embedded in the community should be more effective in tackling crime in Nigeria, because collection of information and intelligence through local knowledge and dialogue will be enhanced.
Ibeneme Dominic, state police is the answer. Its advantages outweigh its disadvantages. We must emulate best practices.
Let's get Cecilia Okoroma's reaction. It says, state police is ideal. The fear is that small governors will engage them in settling petty squabbles and carrying handbags.
Festus Akimboyewa, there's nothing wrong with the current Nigerian National Police if enough police officers are recruited and trained. The situation where thousands of our police officers are used as bodyguards to politicians and other VIPs is a drain on our resources.
Wadora Gede tweets, injecting professionalism into the Nigerian police would improve policing. But when the police has high regard for their profession, it will reflect in the way they carry out their daily functions. funding is very important.
Usman A. Julo tweets, the idea of state police should be shelved at this point in time. The idea should be delayed until when a political class is mature enough, perhaps post-impunity era.
Emmanuel George says, state police is good, but what we need is credible institution as to know who is responsible. We need checks and balances to build reputation before people will trust the establishment of state police.
Charles D. tweets, state police should not be armed with ammunition, but be equipped with various contemporary communication gadgets to enhance their operational efficiency, and the state police should only make recommendations for prosecution to federal police and other agencies. State police should work mostly in area of intelligence gathering, that's community-based policing, he says, which may help the general security architecture in national defense.
For Mayaki Moshood, his fears are state police is not advisable for diverse, multicultural, and multi-ethnic Nigeria. It may easily become a tool for disintegration. Those are some of the reactions we have received from the viewers. Keep them coming at NTA GMN as displayed on the screen. But right now, we'll take a break. When we'll return, we'll go on the home stretch for the conversation. The state police to be or not to be.
NTA Television College, JOS, an affiliate of Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, is organizing a 2-week course in broadcast media management techniques. The course will be facilitated by iconic media managers and administrators such as Dr. Tony O. Iradia, former DG, NTA. Date, 5th to 16th March 2018. Course fee, 100,000 naira per participant. Accommodation inclusive. Also, a 4-week course in principles and practice of marketing. We hold from 19th March to 13th April 2018. Course fee 100,000 naira per participant. Accommodation inclusive. Venue for both courses will be the NTA Television College, Rayfield, Jos. Both courses are specially designed to hone the skills of participants in the dynamic broadcast media space. The broadcast media management technique course targets participants from grade level 10 to 15 and shall deal with critical management functions that affect job performance. Principles and practice of marketing course has been packaged to help participants acquire relevant knowledge and skills in all aspects of digital marketing, public relations, market research, strategies, and management. For further enquiries, contact 0806 908 9807, 0703 660 7155, or email ntacollege@gmail.com. NTA Television College, training you to be the best you can be.
Cold and flu can spread through the contact of hands. And in such situations, I can't risk falling ill. So I recommend Dettol, as it protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs. That's why I want to be Dettol sure. Dettol, be 100%.
They've already done us proud. Nobody will ever imagine that in any Winter Olympics, there'll be Nigerians there. And then for the very first time, I'm really proud of them. And I believe strongly that that's the beginning of new things that's happening in sports. And I believe strongly that in the next 2 weeks, we should be hearing something that we'll be all be proud of. They are our girls, and I'm rooting for them.
There we go, Stevie, let's go!
You are watching the Kwese Free Sports, UHF 32, for the fan.
All right, you're welcome back. Now let's return to our guest here in the Abuja studios. Let's begin with the former Deputy Governor of Abia State, Dr. Chris Akomas. Dr. Chris Akomas, listening to our tweets and then also listening to some of the other guests, one major fear about the advent of state police is the likely abuse in the hands of the chief executive of the state. How do you think this can be addressed? And what other safeguards are needed if, of course, you think that's the way to go?
Thank you very much, Kinsley. You see, we listening to all the arguments that have been advanced, we seem to think that those in charge at the federal level are not politicians. We also seem to project a feeling and thinking that those that are there today as governors or whatever will remain there infinito. we have to remember that what goes around comes around. Whatever, there are governors who were very wicked to their people and to their subordinates that today, whether they exist, people don't know, and they regret it. So all we have to do is to put a system in place. That was why I made reference to that system about the Houses of Assembly. We put a system in place that will punish excesses. Like I said, people are still using even the Nigerian police force to intimidate and deal with opponents. And I said I've been a victim of that.
So is there not a system in place checkmating that?
Which system? The former Inspector General of Police have told you, when the governor is the one that gives money for fuel, buys the vehicle, provides things for, the police to do something. I remember at one time we met in a governor's forum meeting where I represented my state, and there was discussion of how, because the crime rate was high, kidnappings and all that, we talked about how to lock up the zone to make sure that communication between various police, formations will be effective with the necessary things. We had to even go apply for, APCs and all that to make sure that they have the proper equipment. So when a governor at the end of the month, the commissioner of police is the one that, look, funding of the police, whether from federal, state, or is something that we have to sit up and find a solution to. But I want to assure you, no governor, no government can afford to owe an arm-carrying personnel or group like they owe the civil servants. That government or people want to finish themselves. I mean, they can turn the gun against you, but they are and they're the ones you expect to protect you and protect the citizenry. And the first port of call for any government is the security and welfare of the people. You cannot even attempt welfare if the security is not there. Therefore, we all need to sit down. There is need. We have, from all the distance, I can see that there is a consensus that there is need to do something about, getting to the various levels to police effectively. So the funding is something we have to sit down, work out how, and they have a proper system, very transparent system, not the one that somebody sits in and say, okay, this commissioner behaves very well, I give him 20 million every month. This person of state security behaves very well, I give it, and then correlate their personal loyalty. If we have that system, and I think it's possible, when we start, we'll get there.
Thank you very much. So, Michael Kiro.
Yeah,
the issue of funding, apart from the issue of funding,
yeah.
or even other reorganization from what PS2 is even doing.
Can the state police not coexist with the federal police and other security agencies, DSS, the military even?
Of course it can. Like happening in some other countries, Canada, US, and so on and so forth. They can exist, but the Nigerian system is different. Nigerian society is different. We're evolving. Our democracy, how old is our democracy? You can't compare Nigeria with American democracy. We are moving gradually. Like I said, state police is good, but we're not yet ready for it. As time goes on, maybe the next 10, 20 years' time, we mature for state police. Not all other, even the political structure have to be put in place. The police is not the only one. You can't handle police isolation of the entire society, the entire political class, the entire economy. So if our political system is not functioning the way American system is functioning, you can't expect the police system to function the way American police is functioning. It's a cyclical circle. We belong to a state. So you cannot pick something out of the entire gamut and put somewhere else. If state police is working in America, it will not work in Nigeria. Because if political structure will work in America, it will not work in Nigeria. So state police is good for security, but we're not ready for it.
So earlier on, one of the guests actually mentioned of the meeting for the Police Service Commission, at least, and all the other members involved. What is the push from the different concerns that have been raised that has come before you?
Yeah, a lot of papers I've written the papers myself, presented the papers to government. This zonal DIG. The government almost bought it. But the mistake I made, which someone capitalized on, was when I said the Nigerian police budget should be given to 7. The 6 to go to the zones, 7 parts to go to IG. The IG there was not happy. So he thought that it was going to mean IG forever. So he fought again because I said a budget, police budget should be given to 7. So he went around campaigning against these zonal DIGs. That was the federal government. I say bring it up because IGs come and go. That one has come and gone. But the system will remain. The system must evolve for the benefit of all Nigerians.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks a lot, Sir Mike Okiro. Let's bring it again, Professor Ogunshakin. Professor Ogunshakin, again, I mean, the background to all of this discussion and indeed to the pronouncement by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo with regard to the inadequacy of the current policing arrangement in the country has to do clearly with what we know. You know, the police force, the strength of over 300,000, 150,000 of them are used as bodyguards and other domestic staff, you know, by politicians and so on and so forth. And then we have these recurrent issues of security challenges all around the country. If we say, go ahead with the state police, now, the proponents are saying, look, it's not necessarily every state that should have it. I don't think every state now necessarily has a state university. Perhaps they do. In the beginning, all states didn't have state universities. When that started in the Second Republic, perhaps it would be on a need basis, as some of those proponents have argued. And then the number of personnel you need will also be determined by the size of your pocket. Is it possible to factor this into what we have seen with regard to other, if you like, you know, police-like functions, traffic control, for instance, in some states, you know, environmental sanitation officers, and so on and so forth. Is it possible to have an idea of this, say, with regard to state policing and what the limitations might be so that they can then grow from time to time?
The idea is good, but the issue for us is to look at the various activities that the police actually take on. First, you look at intelligence gathering, you look at the issue of investigations, you look at all departments. But the reality we have in Nigeria is we still, and this is not a spite on the whole nation, but we're still operating in an analog stage where we are comparing ourselves to people who are already in the digital state. And the issue for us is like comparing apples and oranges. They are fruits, but they are not the same. So the reality of state policing for us is we are not ready. And one of the questions I do ask people is, in all our institutions in Nigeria, name 2 that actually works, 2 that meet international standard that works. We don't have any of the institutions in Nigeria that we can actually put a tick on the box to say it's working to everybody's satisfaction. Now, just because something is not working doesn't mean that you have to go and recreate another entity that will pose bigger problems. Now we're saying that the state governors are funding the police. When police then go to the state, we'll be saying that the local chairmen and chairwomen are funding the police. The issue we need to be looking at is let us address what we have in front of us. As it is now, the Nigerian police, with the limited budget they have, they are doing their best. But the issue for me a lot of time is when we compare them to United Nations figure that doesn't exist. Obviously, you've had people saying 400 or 4 police officers to 1,000. That doesn't work because we need to live according to what we could do. We need to grow our own policing according to our cultural entities. And we cannot adopt something that we are not there. As already been said, UK is a standard place. Canada is standard. They've been in policing years. But our own bit is we are still evolving. And until such a time that we can trust each other, we cannot move forward. And the last thing for me is we are not disciplined enough. Nigerians, we are not disciplined. And you cannot trust anyone to actually police you, especially if you give it power to the people who are not trustworthy to start with.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Ogunshaki. Now, to the guests in Lagos, AIG retired Bala Hassan, as well as Dr. Ona Ekomu. Yes, we've talked about issue of funding and also this power vested in the state governors as chief security officers. Already Kingsley asked a question too earlier about the burden already being carried by some states over issue of funding of so many things. And just like every one of you have pointed, can states really carry this, or can they afford to actually carry this burden of full funding if we need to have the state police in place?
First of all, as you mentioned, we have to look at Section 2154 in bracket of the Constitution that establishes the relationship between the governor and the commissioner of the state. That is the main thing that brings friction, because the governor may give order that will look like a command of the uncommanded commander to tell the CP this is what should be done. If it does not conform with regulations, he may have to seek clearance from Abuja. So these are some of the things you see the governors clamoring for state police, so that they will get somebody, they can say, go and arrest Mr. XS, and you have to go and arrest him, because if you don't, your job is at stake. But the governor cannot sack a commissioner of police. At worst, he will seek for his transfer. And mostly, it must be through the IG and the Police Service Commission. So these are the areas of friction, because the governors want certain things to be done. We know what we suffer as practitioners several years back, several decades back, where a governor will say, go and arrest so person. By the time you bring the person and talk to the person, you discover the person has not committed any offense known to law. So your only duty now is to tell the person to go. The governor will feel irritated from there, and it caused some of us to be transferred outside the state. So if you create a state police, definitely you see arbitrary orders. These are some of the implications. So if the present Nigerian police force, in my view, is given what it desires to run the force, there won't be any problem. But provided, as retired IG Mike Okiro said, and the chairman of police service, that this money reaches where it is supposed to go. Because if you are providing 1 billion naira to the IG, you create DIGs in the zones and they don't see anything, it will still boil that to the same thing. We want to see a patrol commander or an investigator in a police station having his own fund to go and effect arrests, to go and execute search warrant. But the situation is never the case. You go to a police station now to make statement, they will say bring paper money for statement form. If the money reaches where it's supposed to reach, including the DPO, it shouldn't stop even at the DIG. The DIG should ensure that there should be a mechanism that if this thing the chairman is contemplating, the chairman of police is contemplating works, the DIG must send the money to the AIGs. AIGs must send it to the CPs, it will go to the area commanders and the DPOs and to the proper people who patrol the streets. If they get it, we shall get better services. In days gone by, if they transfer you from Sokoto to Lagos, they will give you a lorry to carry your property. But now, nobody cares about how you live because the money is not there. Some police detectives or people on transfer, they stay inside patrol vehicles. It's from there they pass the night, they go and work, and their family are elsewhere because there are no barracks. So if there is proper funding of Nigerian police, if it fails, then you can hold the IG responsible. But you don't give him money to work, then you complain, problem here. Somebody requests for 1 billion naira, you give him 36 billion, which is 3.6% of what he needed. He needed 700 million naira to repair vehicles, to build barracks. But these things were not given, then definitely you don't expect the best from the Nigerian police force. So the government have their own duty to do to the force.
Thank you very much, IG Bala Hassan. Let's get the closing thoughts from Dr. Ona Ekomu. What's safe strategy? Dr. Ekomu? Well, Dr. Ekomu, I was asking for your closing thoughts. What safe strategy are we now pushing in wrapping up this discussion this morning?
Yeah, well, I think my contribution in wrap-up is let us determine what we need as Nigerians to get from police agency, from our police agency, which is service, which is protection of lives and property. And then let us resource the police agency to be able to do its work in a creditable manner. Now, when that work is done, there must be evaluation of what work has been done. There must be measurement of the work that has been done, and then there must be oversight of police agencies, the kind of work they are doing, such that the work they do will conform to standards. I think if we have that, first, like the young man from Canada said, let's get the NPF working properly before we start talking about whether there's a need to break up the police agency into sub-national units.
Right, Dr. Ehomo, also very briefly now from Sergeant Detective Osage, very quickly, does the mayor of Toronto or the political head of Ontario have to give you instructions to go and arrest somebody before you proceed? Or if you receive such instructions, what will be your reaction?
So that's a good question. The mayor doesn't have any power over any police officer. That's what you call the power of discretion. Every police officer is authorized to use discretion, and obviously the mayor will not risk his political career by instructing an officer to do any job for him. Even the chief of police, which is like the IG, cannot tell a police officer who to arrest or who to investigate. You as a police officer, you are responsible for your own decision. You're responsible for yourself, and you have a discretion if you're going to investigate a crime or if you're going to proceed with a crime. So there's no political maneuver in how we do business. And in closing, I just wish the police or Nigerian people should not use police to focus on crime suppression. There are so many things that police do to prevent crime. I think those things are more important than talking about state policing. They should invest money in the police officers, pay police officers well. I think an average Nigerian police officer should receive a minimum of, say, 100,000 naira a month and well equipped so that they can do their job. I'm sure if everything is given to them, they will be able to do the job. We can't expect police to do everything for us. The society have to help the police to do their job, which I believe the Nigerian society, the Nigerian government, they are not supporting the police, so that they give them the enabling environment, give them the equipment, train them well, give them the discretionary power to make decisions on their own. And I believe we will have a better police service in Nigeria, just like the way we have here in Toronto, Canada.
All right, that's Sergeant Detective Basi Osage joining us via Skype from Toronto in Canada. We'd like to thank you for being with us. I know that it's shortly before 3 a.m. now, your time. Thanks a lot always for being part of Good Morning Nigeria.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm grateful.
Also to our guest in Lagos, Dr. Ona Ehomo, always a delight having you on Good Morning Nigeria. You keep calling me Honorable Kingsley. And also our appreciation to retired AIG, Bala Hassan, who, by the way, used to be the Commissioner of Police in Edo State. Thanks a lot for being on Good Morning Nigeria today. The other guests, Professor Olu Ogunshakin, Professor of Police Studies. Thanks a lot for your thoughts. Dr. Chris Akobas, former Deputy Governor of Abia State. Thanks a lot for being here. Sir Michael Kiro, former Inspector General of Police, and incumbent Chairman, Police Service Commission. Thank you for your contribution. One point, of course, I would like to appreciate everybody, including those who sent in their tweets.
Exactly.
Listen, one point we couldn't address, some other time probably we'll take on it. Rights jurisprudence.
Yes.
If your right as an individual is being infringed upon, or your right as a family or as a community, how do you go about it? Because in terms of the instance of abuse, how do you enforce your rights? All right, so those are the issues. Let's go over now to the Weather Center very quickly to check out the weather prospects for the rest of today.
It's a pleasure to have you join us on the weather segment from the Nigerian Meteorological Agency. I am Issa Helen Boye. The northern cities are expected to be in sunny and dry conditions, while partly cloudy to cloudy skies are anticipated over the central cities down to the southwest inland, with pockets of thunderstorms affecting the southeast coast. As the day progresses, due to more moisture into the country, places like southern Yelwa, Bida, Abuja, Makurdi, Lafia, the southwest inland, extending towards Enugu, Owerri, Abakaliki, and the coastal cities are expected to be under the influence of isolated thunderstorms. For the maximum temperatures across some selected cities, do stand by.
That's Good Morning Nigeria for today. We appreciate your company. Do join us again tomorrow. My name is Blessing Abu. Thank you for watching and have yourself a great stay.
I'm Kingsley Osadola. I join Blessing in thanking you. Enjoy the rest of your day as well.
As a physiologist, I know how important it is.
The grant you're asking for looks like a drop from what you're planning.
I need equipment. There's any equipment.
I'm okay. I'm very happy.
Why would I give you 10 million naira that I can empower like 5 other youths with, and they will make money? I will now give you money to go and do research. What have you done in the last 3 years?
We want to implement aggressive sales now.
I suggest, can we make a deal?
Okay.
If you can sell 10 in a day, you'll get 200.
This is not a charity case. So I wrote a mail to all the bank MDs in Nigeria. I sent a note to all of them.
Why are you bringing medical issues, food into this?
Because he needs a grant, not a loan.
This is the network service of the NTA.